Hey, this is Max. Welcome back to another CSR2 video. So new season, new update with the Veteran Noobs account. This is part 15 of my adventures in CSR2. First things first, I already polled for the MA competition convertible, which only took 2 polls. That's a great thing for this season because only 2 polls getting the car means I won't have to waste a lot of silver keys. Last season I spent I went to loyalty pretty much to get the car. So this season, not having to do that means that I can now build up my keys. I'm only at 800 something keys. I'm not too comfortable with that. I would prefer to be at least 1500 by the time I'm entering into a new season, or at least 1200 plus keys. So I'm pretty safe when it comes to each season getting the car, even if it goes to loyalty. So that's that. Now let's talk this time about Tempest 2. So I have not bothered too much with Tempest 2 at this point, although I do have a race pass requirement to run 5 races in Fence Challenge. So since I'm doing that, let's talk about Tempest 2, the differences, and why it's important to know how to tune a car and set up a car for this event challenge. First things first, 250 GTO is a great car for Tempest. It goes all the way through Tempest 3. It should have no problem doing it. Of course, you have to have it built enough. Some elite levels will only help, and obviously you need fusions. But for the purpose of Fence Challenge, this car should easily do all the challenges at the performance point required because it's a relatively high performance car for Tier 2, particularly with elite upgrades and fully fusioned. Even for Tempest 3, the only thing it really struggles at is some of the faster sprints. The slower sprints is not even an issue for it. So this is my go-to car now for Tempest. And because you get the car for free as part of the Legend series, as long as you don't elite license it, you really have a pretty solid car for the purpose of getting through all 3 Tempests and don't need to stress about tuning and figuring out other Tier 2 cars and wasting a lot of effort trying to get the right car. Now, that being said, there are plenty of good Tier 2 cars for this. The 4C Spider, the Honda Civic, even the very common drop from crates, the AMG hatch, the A45 AMG. All those cars can still do it, but most of them are going to require you to build them fully as well, versus a lot of the elite levels for this car gives you a huge leg up on getting through most of Tempest pretty easily, pretty quickly, and that's important. Now we're going to run these few races first, and then I'm going to go back and I'll show you how I have the car set up, and we'll talk a little bit about this PP limit thing that comes with Tempest 2, and eventually even more so with Tempest 3. You really have to understand how to adjust your parts for the best performance point limits that for the best performance under the point limits for each class, so that you can make sure you don't struggle when it comes to getting through Tempest with a car that theoretically should be good enough. So 0 to 60 sprints, right? A little more challenging for this car because it's one of those things that this car isn't super good at. It's a bit of a tire spinner. So what you'll see is that if you launch it just right, if you go into second a little earlier, it'll make the sprint a little better. You could probably even jump into third, but it's going to cut it kind of close. It dynos at 3.90 to 60. You're almost better off, I think, with this car to not worry about nitrous when it comes to sprinting. So that's only sprint in this particular bracket of 399 performance point. So let's go ahead and take a look at the setups. Where you want to look at, what you always want to look at is different parts have different effects on a car. Certain parts tend to help with running the quarter-mile times. Certain parts may help you with sprints. Generally speaking, if you're going to sprint, you're going to want more tire and more transmission and nitrous and less of this other stuff. But by doing so, you might be losing performance in the overall of the quarter mile where the car's going to run slower. And also, different parts increase the performance points substantially differently. For example, I have it here at stage 5 for the intake, right? If I put it to stage 4, you see it only drops 1 point. So it almost doesn't pay to drop that versus, for example, if you took a stage off of here for engine, you'll drop a lot of points. That means you can compensate with something else, but look at how much Evo you lose. So it's always the trade-off between how much Evo am I losing and gaining versus how much I'm going to be changing this. Sure, I'm looking for a limit here of 399, but no matter what limit I get here after tuning, and this is the key, after tuning I want to see good points here. This car's tuning is kind of funny in that a lot of times before you get into the full upgrade levels, it stays at this final drive. So the final drive doesn't get tuned a lot because it only gets worse. Okay, so you leave it at 5.0. The grip can be adjusted to give you some more points. Here I can play with it, but generally speaking, it's not going to make too much of a difference. You may get a point here, a point there. Notice my 0 to 60 is technically 3.830, and you can get that by practicing here, just running it in dyno to see what's the best way to get the 0 to 60. But oftentimes 0 to 60 also requires tuning for this car simply because it doesn't grip that well. Okay, so that hit 60 pretty easily in second gear. So you know that 60 is reached at the end of second gear. Notice I didn't even bother to use nitrous because when we did it in the actual race, I used nitrous and it was slower. Look how this is actually a little better than that just by running it without nitrous. Now, there might also be benefit to shifting early, so that's something you play with. Now, can you improve on that? Well, theoretically, you can improve 0 to 60 by increasing grip. So here it is. If I increase grip, I get better 0 to 60. I will get a slower top speed, but that's one option to look at. Then the rest of it goes back to parts. Parts adjustment will always help you or hurt you depending on which parts you're using, what you're trying to do from the 0 to 60 standpoint. So let's go back and finish this bracket and see what, let's see, we're at 399. Here's 415. So let's go ahead and just finish 399 real quick, and then we'll jump to 415 and see how it looks there. I'm not going to make you watch every single race. That's kind of ridiculous. So after this race, I'm going to go ahead and jump forward to 415 where we're going to set it up and show you how 415 works. I also will give you the stats on these because I'll tell you right now, 399, the fastest challenge in here is probably like a 12 something, which is the last race. So we'll look at that and then we'll see how that plays out. I'm going to go ahead and add gas and we'll come back. All right, so we're back. This is the last race in this bracket of 399. It's going to be against Ruby. Now, you can see that it shows us as easy because according to a chart made by one of my teammates, Corey, she's great at documenting all this stuff. She gave me a nice chart on Tempest times. She should only run about a 12.2 in this race, and my car runs 11.2s. So I'm a full second ahead of where I need to be. In fact, I am so far ahead on performance with this 250 GTO that I can actually finish the 415 performance point bracket without any upgrades. I don't need to even update the car to 415, but we're going to do it anyway because obviously if I have the additional points available to upgrade, why not? It can only make things easier. So it tells you that the 250 GTO is really, with the elite upgrades, with fusions, is really overpowered for this event. So that's part of the reason why I never made prior videos on Tempest 2 as much, because I found it to be extremely easy to kind of get through. But people have been asking to show how it works, so I'm doing it as part of this video. Now, let's look at the points here. So we talked about you want to add parts that gives points without giving a whole lot there. Usually up to stage 3, that's easy, but as you start to get into stage 4 is where the points start to jump a lot. So it won't just be 1 or 2 points, you're going to get 7, 8 points at a time. But notice this car loves its engine intake and all that good stuff. And if you add those, you can get a lot of point jumps here without really getting over your cap limit here. So the cap limit is 415. I'm barely at 412 and I'm well over 1,000. Now, here's the thing, I don't have fusions in here, right? But I have fusions in here. So it might be worth it to see if I can push to 415 there. No, 1 point over. Okay. So if you're going to be 1 point over with no extra fusions, you're not really getting benefits here. So you want to kind of explore your other options. Can I get something else in that does have fusions that doesn't kick me over the limit? Let's see if tire can, nope. Notice the jump at stage 4. This is very common with most cars, right? Stage 3, you don't gain many points on the performance point side, but stage 4 is a nice big jump in performance points. So just to get to 414, even though this really didn't help us much, let's see where it puts you performance wise. This is how you proceed with point increases. You always want to keep an eye on how many points you're getting and where it's benefiting you the most. Notice now I can put the grip all the way to 0. Notice my 0 to 60. Notice the performance is down to basically 10.2. That, I'll tell you right now, is actually going to beat, well, close to beat the final race. Okay, to beat Finn, to get his Exceed 360, you need to run under 10.2. I'm already there at, basically there at 415 performance point. I got a lot of margins to go from there. I can go all the way up to 486 by the end, and right now I'm only at very low level of 415. So that tells you a lot about where this is going. Okay, now I'm gonna do a few races in here, and then we'll jump to the next bracket, because again, we don't want to waste a lot of time here showing every single race, but we'll do 2 races because the second race here is a sprint. The fastest sprint in this particular bracket is a 3.914, which you know, you saw the dyno earlier. That's not going to be an issue at all. And the fastest opponent is only a 11.8, which is nothing. Now, there are 2 sprints here. I'm going to do the next race because that's the first sprint. That's only a 4.2 something sprint. I should be able to breeze that without even trying hard. Basically, you know, you'll sprint by second gear, you'll hit 60. So basically, you're just doing a first and second gear run, and that's it. Done. Okay, so that tells you you're going to be doing a 3.2. A 3.2 0 to 60 is pretty quick. Not the quickest, but quick enough to pretty much get you to the end. Okay, that's going to be faster than the fastest sprint required in the entire Tempest 2, which is like a 3.305. So that, again, I love this car for Tempest 2 because of all these reasons. So I'm going to keep going with some Finn races down the line. I'm not going to try to finish this Tempest 2 just yet, but that kind of gives you a heads up on where I am with regard to Tempest. My next goal here is to keep running stuff here, including the Prize Cup and getting all those keys. The Crew Cups, obviously, you always want to run those. Let's take a look at my car status now. One of the nice cars I gained from recent seasons, which I'm really happy about, but still a work in progress, is the 2024 M5 sedan. In real life, this thing is like a boat, but you know, nobody can deny that it should be fast. But in this game, this M5 sedan is actually pretty decent. In fact, it's quite decent. It's not just pretty decent, it's good enough to be a very viable and useful live racer if you put the parts in, you put the fusions in. Now, right now, what I'm doing is I'm trying to gather fusions. For example, I don't have the blue here. And these parts here, I'm not as worried about yet, but definitely trying to get some parts together for the car. From a dyno standpoint, this car right now is basically where my Nissan is, a little bit slower than my Nissan at the 11.5 range. Can I tweak it to make it a little better? Not really. It tunes right now to this dyno. Now, what I can do is I can slow it down a little bit to potentially make it a little bit more viable to lobby better. But the point is that it's kind of at a weird dyno point of 11.5 where 11.5 is kind of a bad place to be. You're going to run into opponents, of course. If you lobby well, you're going to run into 11.9 opponents to 12 opponents, but you can also lobby in with 11.3 dyno opponents who can probably destroy you one way or the other. And lobby advantage being a Evo based thing, you definitely want this lower and that higher if you're going to be in any lobby. But I take a run with a bot just to see where the car sits. And quite honestly, I'm still working on the car. Once I get it to where I'm comfortable, the numbers are great, and the car's going to do all right, probably taking some more parts off, adding some more fusions to put it somewhere in the 12.2 range for now until the car is stronger with stage 6s. But the point is that this car is a good alternative live racer, which I've been looking for since I've been using that Nissan Japan too much, and it's boring me to death. I mean, that's quite honest. So notice 12.594 means that I'm actually in 11.5 lobby. That means this BMW has 0 lobby advantage with the current setup that it has. That means it needs less performance point, more Evo, get lobby advantage before it can actually be really good in live. So I'm taking it right back out, packing it away until fusions come and other things get better. The same is going on with this car. It has potential if I can build it to the right parts. In the meantime, I'm still stuck with this. Although the Supra is getting there, this is not the best I can get, but it is a good enough point where it's actually usable in live. Not great. Still not as solid as, say, that number combination. You can see this is higher and lower. This is lower and higher. That's always what you want to look for. So that's currently my live racing situation. This car, still long-term build in progress. This is getting closer as well to getting somewhere as a live racer, but still not quite there yet. The Nissan here is, again, a solid car for getting through Tempest 3 Tier 4. I was asked to make a video on that. I will work on that as soon as I get an opportunity. So that is currently where we are. One thing I am doing is I am buying BMWs right now so I can strip them. Oh, another car that's actually good, I did some preliminary build on the DB12 Volante. This is going to be a good live racer. Not going to be a lobby killer because it doesn't actually beat dyno, but it does carry high enough Evo that I suspect it can lobby very well at lower upgrades and therefore do okay. It's basically the DB12, except it's a convertible, and the DB12 is a viable live racer. So that is another option for me to build. However, my Aston Martin Fusions probably not looking great. And that's the only reason I'm kind of leery of trying to push in too hard on that car. Ooh, actually, it looks okay. It's not great, but it looks okay. There's something there for me to look at, but that's a slow build as well. I could buy Aston Martin, and there are ways for me to get these fusions, but it's not a priority. So that essentially is where I am right now with the veteran noob, and I hope that discussion with Tempest gives you some insight into how and why I tweak the car the way I do, and how you can more successfully get through Tempest. So we'll end it here because we don't want the video to get too long. If you have any questions or you have any information you would like to know about, feel free to ask in the comments. If you like the video, leave a like. If you like this kind of videos and would like to be notified when I put them up, Subscribe, hit the bell, and you get notified when I put up new videos. And as always, thank you for watching my videos. I'll catch you next time.